Hey, everybody. We're back again for the very last
Yep.
summer Bible study lesson of the year,
Yes.
the very last one. We're in Third John, chapter number 1,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to cover the entire chapter as we'll close out our summer
Mm-hmm.
Bible study with this chapter here. We
Mm-hmm.
want to say thank you so much for being with us this whole
Right.
time, and we hope
Mm-hmm.
that you'll stick with us through the end of this one. And
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So Second John was a letter to a family,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just kind of short and sweet, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just a reminder. It was kind of like a warning to say, "Hey, I know you're doing good, but just be aware of this
Mm-hmm.
danger." And then closes out. Well, Third John is a letter in the same fashion of to this person, but it's an encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm encouraging them in what he's seen that's good.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's look at 1 through 4, the greeting. It says, "The elder unto the well beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth."
So this is no doubt somebody that he has taught along the way.
Mm-hmm.
He's discipled this person,
Right.
and he is excited to see the fruit that is
Mm-hmm.
in Gaius's life.
Right.
And he's basically saying, I want you to continue to prosper, not
Mm-hmm.
only just spiritually, but I want you to prosper in your health and
Mm-hmm.
and everything that you touch. He's basically saying, I pray that
Right.
God will just reward you greatly for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he goes on, says, I have no greater joy than to hear the things of my children.
Right.
So, I find encouragement in this because, when I think about discipling people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you wonder, is it really getting through to them?
Right.
Is it, is there any evidence of the time and the labor that you spent with them?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's you have to look at what's happened here, where John is
Right.
basically saying, hey, look, I've spent time with this guy here,
Mm-hmm.
and what we don't see too much of here is that, or in these few verses right here, is that um, kind of lost my train of
I
thought.
know. What we
I'm
don't see
sorry.
in these verses is what?
We What we don't see in this verse here is where that there's any discontentment. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Right.
Where there's any discontentment in the things that is going on in Gaius' life.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to rejoice with John and this in this greeting here.
Right. He says, even as thy soul prospers. So he's saying, like, I see spiritually that you have prospered into this person.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I also pray that God would prosper the other areas of your life because
Mm-hmm.
of where you are with your soul spirit,
Yeah,
And
right.
I think that's beautiful. And we can, as a parent, I can look at this and say, there's no greater joy when I know that my children
Mm-hmm.
are walking how you raised them,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so while it can be a struggle and sometimes you're not certain, it's nice to see that even in like young adults or the
Mm-hmm.
youth,
Yeah.
when, they've gone off to college or somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and then you run into them.
Right. Right.
And they're telling you, and you see how they've continued to
Yeah.
walk in the way.
That's exciting.
And it's exciting. It's, it kind of just reassures you also.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure for John, not only is he wanting to say how excited he is that Gaius is staying in the faith, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure it was exciting to him.
Yeah.
To know, like, it warmed his heart to have that knowledge.
That was a joy to his spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
And know that you can be a joy to other spirit. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
sometimes have no idea the impact you make,
Mm-hmm.
not in doing something for someone else, but just in the walk
Mm-hmm.
that you have in your normal day-to-day life.
Yeah.
That is apparent to others.
Yeah.
And what an impact that makes for people.
That's right. That's right.
And then let's look at verses 5-8. It says,
Yeah.
Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers, which have borne witness of thy charity before the church, whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well, because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we may be fellow helpers to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's saying that you faithfully have taken care of the brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess.
You've been there. Nobody's
Mhm.
had to rely on strangers, but rather that the church was taking care, and you have taken care of the people who needed, the help in their life.
Right.
And then he said, not only did you do it, he said, but you
Mhm.
faithfully did it. It's not
Yeah.
like you just did it in passing or when you had time. He said, but you faithfully done that for the
Mhm.
brothers. And then he also says, not only for the brothers, he said, but for strangers as well.
Right. So for those who came through,
Yeah.
it put me in mind of maybe the missionaries, because
Mhm.
when those days, men of God would travel around sharing the good news, and they may not always have
Mhm.
somewhere to dwell. And so I think John's saying, that those who are
Mhm.
on their journey, that
Yeah.
you've taken in those who are trying to share the good news with others,
Yeah.
and you have been a safe, loving place for them.
That's right. And he
Mhm.
talks about, he said, who have borne witness of your love before the church.
Mhm.
He said, this is something that others have taken notice of.
Right.
So you have done a faithful thing and a good thing in the
Mhm.
presence of others that might see it. You didn't do it for that reason, but others were able to see that and realize that the God
Mhm.
who lives inside of him
Right.
is working in other people as well.
And there's no greater testament to, as John's pointed out repeatedly through this, we are to love one another,
Yes.
and we are to love the brethren, and for a church to be known because they love people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's important.
It's important. And so here he's saying, that the love you've had towards him has not gone unnoticed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That there's an awareness
Right.
of the love that's demonstrated there. And that's what we should all be praying for, is that we could care for others, that they knew that
Yeah.
they were loved.
And God didn't do it for his sake. It said
No.
he did it for the sake of Jesus' sake in verse number
Mhm.
7, because they went forth for his name's sake.
Right.
They did it for Jesus. They did it
Mhm.
for the cause of Christ. So the things that we
Yep.
do as ministers of the gospel, and everybody who is a born again child of the King
Mhm.
should be a minister of the gospel
Right.
in some capacity. We use that term sometimes and we think that's just relating to preachers, but everybody is a
No.
minister of the
Mhm.
gospel. We are to
Mhm.
minister to people, and that's what he did in his life and the
Right.
church.
And how he words it there is
Yeah.
what makes me put in mind of the whole missionary thought of
Yeah.
those going around sharing the good news. He was the place for them to go and to rest,
Yeah.
and to continue on the journey.
Yeah, that's right. And he
Mhm.
said, all these things we see there in verse number 8, he says that we might
Yeah.
become fellow workers of the truth. We
Mhm.
might partner together so we
Right.
could accomplish greater things. One of the things that, it gets me excited, especially as a pastor, is when you
Mhm.
start seeing people in the church that take on a mission work, and then somebody comes alongside them and says, hey, how can I help you?
Right.
How can I, be a part of what you're doing? And then
Mhm.
it becomes contagious. I think about our young adults ministry who, when we started, going once a month, and we were feeding the homeless,
Mhm.
and it started out with just a few, and then the last few times there's been a lot of the church that comes alongside, and then
Right.
and that's exciting to me to see how
Mhm.
ministering to others can be contagious when you are faithful in that
Right.
one thing.
Well, it's easier when there's other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to be the one that first steps out and starts, because you may be the only one, but as you stay faithful, others will get involved. They will see it, and they will
Mhm.
begin to understand that they're
Mhm.
not having to do it by themselves. Most people
Yeah.
don't do it because they don't know either where to start,
Mhm.
or they don't want to step out alone.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I have been very encouraged with, is that we have several people in our church who have different passions
Mhm.
that God has placed in their lives
Yeah.
to help serve and care for others.
Yeah.
And I see it in other local churches around us, that just that one person researching and figuring out
Mhm.
where they can make an impact in our community, and then pulling other people in.
Yeah.
So that way, the people that would like to be involved but don't know how, now know how, and
Mhm.
someone to do it with. So
That's
now it's not quite so scary or intimidating.
Yeah.
And that's why he was providing that safe place of
Well,
love
and that was the model of
for
the New
them to
Testament
rest.
church, because the
Mhm.
Bible says they went out 2 by 2.
Yeah.
They partnered together to
Mhm.
minister in the world. So,
Right.
okay. So move on to the next verses.
We're going to do 9 through 12. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith. Neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil hath not seen God. Demetrius hath good report of all men, and of the truth itself. Yea, and we also bear record, and ye know that our record is true.
Yeah, yeah. So he speaks of two different people in these passages here.
He cautions against the one,
yeah,
and then commends the other.
That's exactly right. And he's saying that at the first one that he likes to have the preeminence. In other words, he wants the authority.
Yeah.
And what he doesn't have authority under, then he will cast out of the church. He pushes off. He doesn't allow to work. It reminds me of somebody who's power hungry, or somebody who is looking to accomplish their will rather than God's will. And
he wants everyone to look at him. He's in that whole, look at me, I'm somebody. Yeah. And if anybody takes what he thinks is his glory, which should automatically be a red flag, it's never our glory.
Right.
But it says that he slanders them with evil. Like he speaks evil of those people. He tries to tear them down. And we live in a world that does just that.
That's exactly
right. If you don't like what they like, and you're not going to pet their sins and tell them they're okay, then they're going to do everything they can to speak ill of you, to try to ruin you, so they look like they're the one in the right, so that they look like possibly the victim and you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because they want to be seen and appreciated in themselves, not to bring honor to someone else. And as a Christian, our goal should always be bringing honor to God, not honor to self. And John is letting him know, just I'll deal with him when I
he said, if
just
I
be
come,
aware, and if I come to
I'll
him,
keep that in mind. He said, I will pay close attention to that, so don't even fret that. So it's obvious to me that in this particular letter here that they were having problems with this guy.
Right.
That he was being what he should not be. Because he goes on down in that passage, he said, beloved, says, do not imitate what is evil. He said, don't do the things that you're seeing that is evil. He said, but only imitate, what is good. He says, he who does good is of God. But then he goes on, he says, but he doesn't is evil and has not seen God. So there is a litmus test in between these things. You can measure, do you really truly know the mercy and the sweet name of Jesus by acting like a heathen? Or do you know the mercy and the sweet love of Jesus by doing the Father's will and imitating good rather than evil?
Right.
So, those are things we have to pay attention to.
Well, it's very natural and flesh-like to pay evil for evil.
Yeah.
But we know as children of God, that's not what we have been called to. We've been called to be separated. And when we are separated out, it means that we do good regardless of the evil that's given.
Yeah.
So if someone does evil to us, we leave that to God.
Sure.
But we still do good. We don't imitate and follow suit. And a lot of people want to say, yeah, but you don't know what they've done. Well, it doesn't matter what they've done. What they've done, you give to God.
Yeah.
But what you do, you'll stand before God with. We will stand before God with.
Absolutely.
And in that, we want to do good so people see the Father, not us.
Yeah. And then he talks about Demetrius having a good testimony. And he doesn't have to go too deep into his testimony. So good testimony speaks for itself.
Right.
You don't have to admonish people and put them on a pedestal when they're doing good because it shines through. And he's basically saying that he says he's got a good testimony from all and from truth itself. And said we bear witness. He said you know his testimony. He said these are things that are obvious. So there was some good going on in the congregation, but there was also some bad going on in the congregation. he says, don't get caught up in the bad, but
Mm-hmm.
make sure you work in the good.
Right. And he's saying, you're here doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about what he's doing.
And
We
everybody,
know. And sometimes it's you need someone to come and say, look, we know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You don't need to let that hinder what you're doing. We know. We are aware of that.
Yeah.
And that will be handled in its time. But you just keep doing what you know to do.
Put
you
your
keep
focus on what
doing the good
you're
that you're
supposed to.
called to do.
Mm-hmm.
You keep helping the brethren. You keep furthering the word of Christ. You keep on. And if we'll keep on,
Mm-hmm.
that will eventually take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But when you acknowledge and fuel the fire,
yeah,
it will grow.
right, right.
But where there's no fuel, the fire
Sure.
dies.
That's right.
And a lot of times we make the mistake of we don't even realize it. And by acknowledging it, we're fueling that fire.
Yeah.
By keeping a constant eye on that,
Mm-hmm.
we fuel that fire. When in exchange, we should just be doing the good that we know to do.
Yeah.
To have a good report.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then 9 through 12, he closed. We just did 9 through 12.
Yeah.
13 to 14, he closes out his letter and he says, I had many things to write, but I will not with ink and pen write unto thee. But I trust I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. Peace be to thee. Our friends salute thee. Greet the friends by name.
Yeah. He said, I got a lot of things to say, but I'm gonna hold that until I see you.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, once again, somewhere we fail
mm-hmm.
is it don't always have to be something big.
Sure.
This is a nice short letter. He's just saying, hey, we see the good that you're doing and it is overflowing our hearts.
Yep.
Sometimes we think to do something to encourage someone
mm-hmm.
has to be something big.
Yeah.
And in our ministry team, we have one of our ministry team that is like her phenomenal call by God is to send an encouragement,
mm-hmm.
to send out a card or a letter or I'm thinking of you. And it doesn't have to be anything great.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she just simply signs with her initial. Sometimes she don't sign it out. She just sends the encouragement.
Yeah.
And sometimes we fail in that because we think we need to write this long
mm-hmm.
thing or we need to do something more when really just someone saying, I see you.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not gone unnoticed and not even maybe even a good deed, just maybe even that person.
Yeah.
Hey, it was good to see you.
Right.
You know, just something to be an encouragement. And I think John writes this really short and sweet letter,
mm-hmm.
but it's to say, hey, what you're doing matters.
Right.
And I know there's some evil right there near you, but don't worry about that because you are having an impact.
Mm-hmm.
You make a difference.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait till I get to see you face to face. You know, there's a whole conversation I want to have with you. I want to catch up with you.
mm-hmm.
But for now, I just wanted to encourage you to keep the faith.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing so well because it's making a difference.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
In ministry, sometimes
it gets hard.
It can get hard and it
mm-hmm.
can get lonely.
Yeah.
And you don't know, okay, is what I'm doing making any difference? Does it matter at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not that you need the masses. If it just encourages one person,
mm-hmm. yeah,
then it's worth every bit of it.
Sure it is.
So sometimes you need to just be that one person that says, hey,
yeah,
your smile today made a difference in my life.
That's right. Absolutely.
This, whatever it was, made an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate it.
Sure.
And that's what John was doing here.
Yeah. So he closes out this letter, you know, and closes out these, you know, his whole 3 letters that he gave
Mm-hmm.
on a high note. And so we should look at ministry in that capacity. When it's hard, finish it out with a high note.
Mm-hmm.
When it's, you know, when it don't make sense, finish it out with a high note.
Right.
Because the Father that we are serving and worshiping
Mm-hmm.
deserves the very best that we
That's
can
right.
absolutely give him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, as I've always said, John is so exciting to me.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we've closed out John.
Yeah.
We have 2 more books, which we'll be working at this fall,
mm-hmm.
doing a Bible study, finishing out.
Yeah.
But before we close, I do want to say our one-day women's conference is coming up in September. and tickets are available on our website.
Mhm.
So please come be a part of it. It's going to
Yeah.
be in Lincolnton this year, and it's just
Yeah.
going to be a great day. And our theme is Weary Traveler. So I would
Mhm.
encourage you to come be a part, fellowship with other women
Yep.
as we grow in the Word, as we worship together,
Mhm.
as we fellowship through lunch, and just
Yeah.
it's always a good time. And you come be one of our, you're one of our volunteers. So
Mhm.
it's
Oh yeah.
we seem to have a good time,
Have a
right?
good
It's
time.
really
What's
encouraging
that
in
web
Christ.
address?
Findingthemore.org.
Findingthemore.org.
Yes, and it'll also it's on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
So hopefully you will come and be a part of that. So
Yeah. It's going to be
we
a
look
good
forward
time.
to seeing you and for you to join us again in our last 2 chapters as we close out the New Testament.
All right. May God bless you.